The scene begins on a quiet autumn afternoon, when the leaves gently fall from the trees, as if the wind were whispering a goodbye. The sun slowly fades, painting the sky in warm hues. In a modest little house on the outskirts of a small town, there is grandmother Clara, a woman over 80 years old, with wrinkled skin and hair as white as snow. Her body is tired from the years, but her soul shines with an unshakable light. Clara is sitting in a chair by the window, gazing at the horizon, as if waiting for something, as if she feels time slipping through her fingers. In her hands, she holds an old Bible, covered in marks, and although her eyes no longer see as clearly as before, her heart is still burning with faith. In front of her, her grandson, Mateo, about 10 years old, plays with a piece of wood, building castles in his mind. The boy watches his grandmother in silence, sensing that something special is happening in this moment. Though he doesn't fully understand it, he knows that this day is different. The wind enters through the open window, caressing Clara's cheeks and tousling Mateo's hair, who, without stopping his play, looks at his grandmother and asks, "Grandma, why are you so quiet? Why aren't you praying today?" Clara, with a gentle smile, looks at her grandson and answers with a voice both fragile and firm, "Because, my dear, I'm waiting for the last prayer. The prayer that isn't said with words, but with the heart." Clara's answer lingers in the air, and although Mateo doesn't fully understand what it means, a sense of peace fills the room. As the sun sets, Clara closes her eyes for a moment, as if receiving a divine visit, and Mateo, unknowingly, is about to witness a miracle that will mark his life forever. Night falls quickly, enveloping the village in a cloak of darkness. The only light in Clara's small house comes from a candle on the table, its glow flickering with the wind. Mateo, restless, approaches his grandmother and sits beside her, resting his head on her lap. Clara continues to gaze at the horizon, her eyes distant, as if she can see something beyond what others can. Mateo, curious, can't help but ask again, "Grandma, what prayer is it that you're waiting for?" Clara looks at him with tenderness, and for a moment, it seems she is going to say something, but she simply sighs softly. Then, she takes Mateo's hand and looks him squarely in the eyes. "It's a prayer that has no words, my son. It's a prayer made when the heart is full of love and faith. It's the kind of prayer one can only make when they are near the end of their journey in this world. But Mateo, it's not about what we ask for, but what we give." The boy furrows his brow, not fully understanding. But Clara continues, with a calmness that brings him an inexplicable comfort. "Every time we give something with love, especially when it's the last thing we have, God hears us closer. My prayer will not be a request, but a surrender. My life, my faith, everything I have, I give to Him, with the hope that my love for you, for your mother, for everyone around me, will stay alive through you, even when I'm no longer here." A deep silence settles in the room. Mateo, with the innocence of a child, can't help but ask, "And what will I do, Grandma, when you're no longer here?" Clara hugs him tightly, and with her soft but firm voice, she responds, "You will do what you've always done, Mateo. You will be brave. You will be full of faith. And when you need strength, don't forget that the prayers of those who loved you are with you, even when you can't see them." At that moment, Clara leans toward the table, takes a small wooden rosary that she has always carried with her, and places it in Mateo's hands. He watches it, his eyes shining with a mix of confusion and reverence. "This rosary," Clara whispers, "is the one that has always accompanied me. Now it's yours." The candle flickers, and the room fills with an indescribable peace. Something feels different, as if the air is imbued with a silent blessing. Mateo tightens his grip on the rosary with his small hands, unaware that this is the last lesson Clara will leave him. The clock on the wall marks midnight, and the small house seems to be in a deep sleep. However, inside the room where Clara and Mateo are, the atmosphere is filled with a special stillness, as if the entire universe had paused its march to listen to the grandmother's words. Clara leans back in her chair, her body growing more and more tired, but her face is serene, at peace. Memories seem to dance in her mind, like leaves blown by the wind. She has lived much, loved deeply, and above all, believed with unshakable faith. But tonight, on this very quiet evening, she feels the moment approaching to surrender everything she has kept in her heart. Mateo, unable to sleep, continues to hold the rosary. With every turn he makes, the soft wood seems to calm his restless soul. He knows that his grandmother is about to say something important, something that will change his life forever. "Grandma, how do you know that God hears our prayers?" asks Mateo softly, as if fearing to interrupt the sacred silence that surrounds them. Clara smiles gently, and her eyes shine with a glimmer of wisdom that only comes with the passing of years. "God always listens, Mateo. It doesn't matter how you say it. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a storm or at peace. He is always near, waiting for you to speak to him with your heart. Faith, my dear, isn't about asking for what we want, but trusting in what he will give us, even when we don't understand why." Mateo looks at the candle, as if waiting for an answer in the flickering light. Then, with a small smile, he asks, "What if I don't know what to ask for?" Clara gently strokes his head. "You don't need to ask for anything, my love. Just tell God what's in your heart. Sometimes the best prayers are the ones that don't have words. Your love for him and for others is enough." The boy, feeling a strange calm, keeps staring at the rosary in his hands. He doesn't know why, but he feels that something important is about to happen. Clara, seeing the innocence in his face, decides to share one last story with him. "When I was young, I asked God for something very big. I asked that my family would always stay united, that we would never be separated. And although we faced many difficulties, he was always with us, guiding us. Today, my prayer is the same, that you and your family, when the time comes, always find yourselves under his protection." Mateo listens in silence, understanding for the first time what it truly means to have faith. Time seems to melt away, and all that remains is the deep love of a grandmother who, with each word, is preparing her grandson for what is to come. With one last deep sigh, Clara closes her eyes, and the silence of the room becomes even deeper. Mateo, with his heart racing, looks at his grandmother, worried. "Grandma?" But Clara does not respond. A soft glow seems to surround her, as if her soul is slowly rising towards something greater. The boy, though frightened, feels a peace he cannot fully comprehend. In that instant, he knows that his grandmother has given her final prayer. The silence lingers, heavy and solemn. Mateo, with his heart pounding in his chest, watches his grandmother. The candlelight flickers strangely, as if it were a sign, and for a moment, the room feels warmer, filled with an invisible presence. The boy, with tears in his eyes, leans toward Clara, fearing that what he dreaded has already come. "Grandma," he whispers, his voice breaking, as if speaking louder might shatter the magic of the moment. "Where are you?" At that instant, the wind blows strongly, entering through the open window, like a soft whisper that seems to answer him. Mateo feels a wave of love surround him, a force that goes beyond human understanding. He closes his eyes, seeking comfort in that invisible embrace that seems to emanate from his grandmother. When he opens his eyes, he realizes something astonishing. His grandmother is no longer sitting in the chair. However, on the table, next to the rosary, lies a small white flower, delicate and perfect. It is as if nature itself had left a symbol of Clara's passing, a gift in her departure. The boy approaches, trembling, and when he touches the flower, he feels a warm peace envelop him. He doesn't know how, but something inside him changes. This flower is not just an ornament. It is proof that his grandmother is still near, that her faith, her love, and her prayer are still alive, like the seed that has been planted in his heart. With trembling hands, Mateo picks up the rosary and the flower, carefully holding them. Although his heart is still filled with sorrow, something deeper begins to bloom within him, a certainty that everything his grandmother taught him about faith and love will never disappear. She now lives inside him, and he, though young, has the responsibility to continue her legacy. Outside, the moon shines brighter than ever, lighting the world with its soft glow. The boy looks out the window, seeing the sky clearer than ever before. In his heart, a small prayer begins to form. It is not a request, but a simple declaration of gratitude and love. "Thank you, Grandma," he whispers to the wind. "Thank you for teaching me to trust." The wind seems to answer him, brushing his face, as if Clara were smiling from somewhere beyond the stars. Morning arrives slowly, enveloping the world in a soft golden glow. Mateo wakes up in the same chair where he spent the night, the rosary still clutched in his hands, and the white flower carefully tucked in his pocket. The fresh morning air enters through the window, bringing with it the fragrance of wet earth. For a moment, everything seems silent, as if time had stopped its march. However, something has changed in Mateo. Though sadness still lingers in his heart, there is a deep peace he cannot explain, as if his grandmother's words and love had touched him in a way he never imagined. Today, for the first time, he feels that his faith has taken root, that he is able to understand something that once seemed distant, that God's presence does not fade with time, but stays in every prayer, in every action, in every small act of love. He carefully gets up from the chair, trying not to wake his mother, who is still asleep in the next room. The boy looks once more at his grandmother's empty chair, but instead of sadness, he feels immense gratitude. Clara is no longer there, but in his heart, she is still alive. With the rosary in his hands and the white flower in his pocket, Mateo steps into the garden. The sunlight brushes his face, and as he looks at the landscape, a thought fills him. Life doesn't end. It only changes form. He approaches the small garden his grandmother lovingly tended. The plants, though wilted by the cold winter, are still standing, fighting to grow. Mateo, with a peaceful smile, begins to kneel, as he learned to do beside Clara, and starts to remove the weeds blocking the way with his small hands. As he does, a small bird lands nearby, singing a gentle melody. The boy watches it with wide eyes, feeling that this moment, so simple and full of life, is a gift from God. The bird's song reminds him that life always moves forward, that although the seasons change, something beautiful will always bloom. In his heart, a wordless prayer begins to form. It is not a plea nor a request, but an act of gratitude for all he has received. A thank you for life, for faith, for Grandma Clara, and for everything she left him. A silent prayer, flowing like the wind between the trees, filled with gratitude and love. Mateo whispers, "Thank you, God. Thank you for everything you've given me, for everything you give me, and for everything that is to come." In that instant, he feels God's response, not in an audible voice, but in a warm sensation surrounding his soul. He is not alone. He never was. The day passes slowly, and as Mateo continues his task in the garden, something inside him keeps changing. It's not just the earth he's cleaning with his hands. It's something deeper, something that connects him with his grandmother, with God, and with everything he has silently learned over the years. It's as if a new chapter of his life is beginning, one in which the faith his grandmother passed on to him starts to blossom in his heart. As the sun rises higher, Mateo enters the house, with the rosary hanging around his neck and the flower tucked in his pocket. His mother is already awake, moving energetically around the kitchen. When she sees Mateo, a smile spreads across her face, but as soon as she notices the rosary around his neck, her expression changes for a moment, as if something has touched her deeply. "What's that, son?" she asks, her voice soft and curious. Mateo, looking at the rosary, responds with a mix of humility and conviction. "It's Grandma's rosary. She gave it to me last night. She said that when she's no longer here, I should carry it with me so I never forget her." His mother stands silent for a moment, and a mixture of sadness and admiration crosses her face. She knows what Clara meant to her son, and even though the pain of her mother's departure still lingers within her, something in her son fills her with hope. "Grandma was a woman of deep faith, Mateo," his mother says, her voice trembling. "She always believed that if we keep faith in our hearts, God will always guide us." "I believe that too, but sometimes I forgot about it," Mateo, with shining eyes, responds with a certainty that even he doesn't fully understand. "I believe that too, Mom. Grandma taught me, God is always near, even when we can't see him, and he will always be with us." His mother looks at him, moved by her son's words, as if for a moment, it was she who needed to hear those words to heal her own heart. Mateo, with the innocence and wisdom that only a child can have, has captured the essence of everything Clara taught him. Without saying another word, his mother kneels before Mateo, and with tears in her eyes, embraces him tightly. In that embrace, both feel the presence of Clara, the grandmother, of everything their faith has passed on to them. It's as if the love and faith they shared with her would never fade but would multiply within them. In that instant, something changes. The mother stands up, with new determination on her face, and looks at her son. She too must move forward, for Clara, for Mateo, and for herself. The love they always shared now becomes an even more powerful force. "Come on, son," the mother says, her voice firm. "Today is a good day to start something new, and I know your grandmother would be very proud of you." The sun is beginning to set again, painting the sky with a soft hue of orange and pink. In the small village, the lights start to turn on, and life goes on. But inside Clara's house, everything has changed. Mateo and his mother have spent the day together, working in the garden and sharing moments of stillness, of peace. The sadness from Clara's departure is still there, but now it's mixed with a deep sense of hope and gratitude. Mateo's mother stops in front of the window, gazing at the horizon. The wind moves the branches of the trees, and the same white flower that Mateo had found by Clara's table is on the windowsill, lovingly placed in a small vase. Something inside her makes her smile. She knows that her mother, though no longer physically present, is still with her. And now more than ever, she is determined to live with the faith Clara taught her. Mateo walks up to his mother and, with a look full of trust, says, "Today I learned something very important. Grandma taught me that faith isn't about asking for what we want, but about giving what we have without expecting anything in return. She gave me everything, Mom, and she did it with love. I want to do the same." His mother, touched by his words, embraces him once more. She knows that this child, with his pure heart, has understood what she herself sometimes finds harder to grasp. It's a reminder that faith isn't measured by what we ask for, but by what we are able to give. "I know, son," she replies, her voice trembling, but full of love. And I want to live like that too, like Grandma. I want to be brave and give all that I can, without expecting anything in return. Together, in that embrace, they find the strength to move forward, knowing that Clara's love and faith will continue to guide them. The light of the day fades, but in their home, a new light shines brighter than ever. The light of unshakable faith, hope, and love that never die. Mother and Mateo kneel together in the center of the room. Without words, they both feel Clara's presence, as real as the air they breathe. And there, in that silent prayer, they give their hearts to God, knowing that He has been with them all this time, and that they will never be alone. The night falls quietly over the village. The light of the stars illuminates the sky, and the moon shines brightly, like a lighthouse in the darkness. Inside the house, Mateo and his mother remain on their knees, their hearts in prayer. There are no words to express everything they feel, but deep down, they know that something profound has changed. The faith that Clara planted in them is still alive, burning like a flame that doesn't go out. As they rise, the mother looks at her son, with a new determination on her face. Despite the sadness, despite Clara's absence, there is something within her that drives her to move forward. At that moment, something in her soul is lit. It is the love that the grandmother left, the love that Mateo now carries in his heart, a love that transcends death and time. Mateo, with the rosary in his hands and the white flower in his pocket, approaches his mother. His eyes reflect an understanding that goes beyond his young age. With a gentle smile, he says, "Mom, now I know that Grandma hasn't really left. She lives in us, in our faith, in everything we've learned. And I want to be like her. I want to be brave and always trust in God, even when things are hard." The mother embraces him, feeling how her son's words touch the deepest part of her being. In that embrace, they both feel that, despite everything, they will never be alone. Grandma is with them, in their hearts, guiding them. And though life will always bring challenges, they now have one certainty. Faith is the anchor that keeps them steady, the lighthouse that lights their way. The moon shines more brightly through the window, and the wind, soft and comforting, enters the house, like a whisper from Clara, telling them that she is at peace, that her prayer has been heard. The child looks up at the sky, and in his heart, one last prayer forms, without words, just a sigh of gratitude and love. "Thank you, God. Thank you for everything. And thank you, Grandma, for teaching me to believe, to love, to trust. I will always carry you in my heart." With those words, Mateo and his mother rise, with a new purpose, with renewed faith, knowing that life goes on, but that the most important thing remains intact: the love of God and the hope that never fades. The house, now filled with a deep peace, falls silent. But this silence is one of serenity, of a heart at peace, of a family that has learned to walk in faith, even when darkness seems to surround everything. And in that silence, Clara lives, her legacy endures. The sun begins to rise over the horizon, announcing a new day, a new beginning, and with it, the promise that faith, love, and hope will always prevail.